Yeah, good morning. Okay, what's today? July 10th, 2024. Beautiful rainy Wednesday morning. If you have a canoe, then that's the time to dust it off because you might need that during the next 3 or 4 days or something like that. That's the weather forecast. There's some sort of a hurricane going on somewhere down south, so I think we're getting the tail end of it. So there you go. Umbrella and canoe is your best friend for the next few days. All right. So as far as the lab that we performed yesterday. Here are some observations. Now, first, I'm so glad that I made that lab for you because that kind of opened my eyes a little bit. And, I'm a teacher, but I'm always learning as well. So that's the whole idea as well. So, why am I glad that I actually gave it to you? Well, first thing is, we have learned how to do the termination 110. We have learned how to do the BIX termination, connect the jack to a cable, blah 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 blah. Well, can you imagine what the regular day at work would look like if you get into this business of infrastructures or data or signal infrastructures? I call that modern telecommunications. Uh, some people call it cable tech. I think it should be called data infrastructures because there's more than just laying the cable. However, laying the cable and connecting things is quite a significant part of this business, and that's how we get paid. We have connected 25 pair cable onto the BIX frame, but actually connecting that, hanging it on the wall, that's another thing we're going to talk about, hanging things on the wall or mounting things on the wall, in the ceilings and all that stuff. However, this lab puts you in perspective of actually making things work. How is it that the signal travels from one point to another? And how is it organized in an industrial way? Can you just twist a couple of cables or conductors together and make that signal work? Yes, you can do that. You can do this thing on your ping pong table in your basement, and that's fine. You're going to make the light bulb light up, no problem. You can even make the LED flashing, but you're not going to get paid for that. What you get paid for is actually connecting things, mounting things, and organizing things in an industrial way. Because, if you want to connect one light bulb on your ping pong table, using whichever creativity you want, just to make it work, sticks and stones and, a little bit of masking tape and popsicles, yes, you can. But what if you have to make this thing something work in an industrial environment, commercial, where things, you're not going to have one light bulb to connect. You're going to have maybe 40, 50, 60, 80, 100, 200, 800 voice lines to connect. And they have to be done in an organized way. And when you leave, somebody else comes after you to service that. They know what you've done. And if you do that after somebody else done it, then you also know what's going on. So that's the whole idea. Well, okay. So I got me a clear board. Can I just zoom in a little bit? Now you can see things better, right? Yeah. It's an art. You just can imagine whatever you want. All right. So let me grab a pencil. Do I have the line thickness? Yes, I do. Good. All right. So just for this lab, what's the main idea? The main idea of this lab is that we do have some sort of a connection field. Okay. We do have a feeder cable. We do have whatever amount. We're just going to get two, but I can just do, field wiring. Okay. And then we have the cross-connecting things that we're going to do to connect whatever comes from the feeding, from the feeder cable, to the field wiring in an appropriate way. So that's the main idea. How is it that we're going to do? Okay. So, oops. All right. Let's say we have a BIX frame. Okay. Just a reminder, how is that the BIX frame is organized? Let's say this is a 10 position BIX frame. Right? It does have brackets. There's one bracket here to connect one connector. Right? Here's another bracket to snap on with another connector. Right. And here is a space right here. Here's a space for the labeling strip. And then this here thing, let me see if I can do this quickly here. This is repeated 5 times. All right. Here's another pair of connectors. Here's another pair of connectors, and so on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pairs, like that. That gives you 10 position frame. Over here, oops, over here, there is a, what did I do? Here. There is a space, empty space between the pairs of connectors. All right. Also, what we have is a break in the bracketing, if I can call it that way. Where's my eraser? There's a break here. Make it 100%. There's a break here. Here's a break here. There's a break here, and so on. All right. So let's say you have the last pair of connectors. And let's make another break. My eraser here. There's another break, and there's another break. So the wires can be routed or routed through those breaks right here. Now, the wiring from or to, one more break. The wiring from or to this connector, where that is housing a bunch of pairs, the wiring to this connector is being brought through this little slot. All right, and then all the wires, or from the other side. Usually we pick a side and we stick to it, because if you bring the wiring from both sides, if you have to take this connector out and maybe put it in a different slot or manipulate it in any kind of way or flip it around so you can work on it, then if you have the wiring brought from both sides, it's going to be hard to do. So you either bring the wiring from this side or from that side and just stick to it. Try. Right? Also, remember when we do have we always, when we terminate the wires, we do produce a little bit of a loop or slack or service loop, just so we can take this connector out and manipulate it. And again, it's either flip it around so you can work on the other side, or sometimes you need to rearrange things. So things are not going to be as pretty as you rearrange, but sometimes you can, if you have to. Now, what happens when we originally terminate the back side of the connector? We can't use the punch tool on the rear side of this connector. So that's why we have to flip it around. So the front is at the back and the back is at the front. Now, we always flip it, always. We always flip the connector this way here. All right. We don't flip that connector that way because here is pair 1, here is pair 2, pair 3, and so on. After the flipping, pair 1 still has to be in the same place, so we just flip it this way. We don't flip it sideways like that because then this pair 1 would be the last pair. Another thing that I need to point out is this is the way that this whole frame is going to be positioned, fastened, permanently mounted to a wall. Well, a plywood on the wall. So please work on it as if it was so. I notice people are flipping it around, working it upside down, and then they start from this side, and then when you start flipping it around and rotating it to no end, you're going to lose the whole spatial orientation when it comes to working on this piece of equipment. And then you will not know which way is up and down, and then by that you're going to lose the whole concept of what's going on and why you're actually here and doing this. So position this this frame the way as if it were mounted on the wall and work on it that way. Pair 1 is here, pair 2, pair 3, and so on until pair 25. Now, we're not mounting the 25 pair cable on these BICS connectors during this lab. We're mounting a bunch of Cat5e cables that are not going to be used as Cat5e, but we're going to use them as phone cables. Now, it's try to find a phone cable, box of a phone cable. You're probably going to have a hard time doing it. So even if we're doing the conventional phone systems, which sometimes we still do, and sometimes we add on to the existing systems, we just use Cat5e cable because it's cheap enough, or well, the price is reasonable enough. It used to be that Cat5 or the Ethernet cable was way more expensive than the telephone cable, but you're talking like 25 years ago. So yes, people would get, or companies would get telephone cable to connect telephones. Now everything goes Cat5e minimum, right? And to think about it, if you have a wire stretch or run between 2 points, you can use it as a telephone, or you can use it as data if you choose so. So data is becoming more and more popular. Well, more and more, it's the normal thing. It's like the air we breathe. We use Cat5e cable. All right, so we have established that we need to work on it. Look at it this way. This way is up, this way is down. We bring the cables from the top. That's the feeder cable. We run the field cabling from the bottom one, and we're going to mount a telephone jack on one and telephone jack on the other one. Okay. So here's the idea. When all said and done, when the whole job is complete, there is going to be wiring that is brought to the BICS connector. As a matter of fact, any kind of other connector. But we're working with BICS in this lab. Think about it. It's nice and neat if after the BICS frame is flipped around, so the terminated positions are at the rear of this connector, and the cross-connect points that we're going to use are at the front. So it just makes sense for the neatness and aesthetics purposes that the wiring, after the connector is being flipped, that the wire is between the pair of the connectors. Here's a pair of connectors. separated by a label or designation strip. Here's another, and here's another. There's five of those pairs on a 10 position BIX frame. There are also 2 position BIX frames or 4 position BIX frames for smaller venues. So when we are going to bring the wires that are going to be flipped around, they're going to find themselves at the back of the connector when this thing is properly functioning, then we need to think about this a little bit. After we flip it, those wires should find themselves on the inside here, so they can be covered by the labeling strip. And on the top, things are going to be nice and clean. On the bottom, things are going to be nice and clean. So when we are terminating the top connector, we bring the wires from the top. And here's all the ugliness, not ugliness, but the whole wiring shebang right here. After we flip it, rotate that, they're going to find themselves on the inside. When we are terminating this bottom connector, bring the wires, well, from the back side, bring the wires from the bottom. So after this thing is being flipped, those wires are going to find themselves on the inside space between those 2 connectors, and they will be covered by the designation strip or a labeling strip. You got to think about, see, here is what I'm noticing now. I'm noticing a huge difference between students terminating wires in the beginning of, like, well, this is July right now, but in September, kind of disorganized wiring was the general habit of things. Just make things work, connected, don't breathe on it, it works fine. I call it that, this is the my analogy of the, making things connected on your ping pong table in your basement. But we're not doing that. We're connecting this thing commercially, and we're not connecting just one thing here. We're connecting sometimes 800 of those. And it takes more than one day, trust me. Sometimes it takes months to complete the project. So what, I'm noticing a great improvement, which is normal, because that's why we come here to school, and that's why we're learning this thing in some sort of hopefully structured, proper way. So I'm noticing a huge progress on your side, and that's why I just want to give you a pat on your back, that the natural progression of things is happening. You are getting the sense of organizing wires, which means more and more. Still, you got a long way to go, but still, you have that seed planted already in you. Okay, that you're going to start thinking before you're connecting or routing or arranging wires. So I have started that habit in you and some other professors as well. Good job. All right. So we're going to have to think how this thing is going to look, and in the beginning you'll have to think a little bit more, and later on it's just going to become a habitual thing. So yes, I'm noticing that you guys are getting more and more comfortable. It's just right now, at some point, I just have to step in and make slight adjustments in the procedures, so you don't fall into the traps of developing bad habits. And one of them is here. When you are working on those frames, position them in a way that they will be hanging on the wall, which is the right side up, and work on them that way. Have that thing in front of you in that positioning. Do not flip it around because it's closer here. You think you're going to be clever. No, don't try to be clever. Well, you are clever to begin with, all right. So you don't have to be more clever than you are. So just don't lose yourself in the spatial orientation. Don't lose the concept of things. Right? There's a reason why we're not just going through the motions here. And hopefully, in other subjects, as you know, that's the same case. All right. So there is no video on this lab. This is an in-class live demonstration. So the other thing is, pay attention, pay close attention. I went sort of fast the other day, which is what was it, yesterday. I went sort of quickly demonstrating, but I was explaining every little detail I was doing. So the other thing is develop a habit of listening and paying close attention to what I'm doing, which I noticed that most of us did, to the point that you guys were leaning over and looking over my shoulder and just paying extra attention to what I'm doing because you want to do this thing properly. Good. All right. Very good. Don't stop doing that. All right. The only thing is that I'm going to not mention that when I'm explaining this thing, everything that I say, because I don't want to lose any more minutes that we have to on not losing, but use more minutes than we have to on explaining things because I want you to have the maximum amount of time possibly, so you could do this job yourself. The more you do it hands-on, the more you're learning. All right. So when I'm explaining things, please don't look at the ceiling tile or something like that, or think about what restaurant you're going to take a girlfriend to, right, or boyfriend. So concentrate. Okay, so that's as far as the lab thing. Now, since we have a little bit more time, I'm going to start on the next week's streak of topics. And, well, this concept is never-ending thing. So I could be talking about this thing for a whole week straight, and I will never cover the whole thing. So we got some extra time doing that. Great. Now, please use the next class. That is going to be designated time for writing the test. All right. Even though the test is online, that's the designated time for that. So there will be no new concept, no new lecture material. I will be in that class in case somebody wants to talk about anything, to clarify things. The only thing I'm not going to be able to answer is questions that have to do with anything that's on the test, because, you got to make that fair. But anything else, if you have some questions about any of the labs or any theory content, I'll be there. Right? 15 minutes. If nobody shows up during the 15 minutes, the class is over. Right? So no new class content. What is it? I think it's Friday, right? That we have it. Okay, so next thing. Where do we have that? There we go. All right. Cabling, infrastructure, installation concepts prepared by the one and only. All right. Control L, I think it is, to get the full screen. All right. What are we getting into? Yes, you're going to have to, in this business, you will never stop learning. That's the beauty of it, right? Because the monotony, forget it. The monotony doesn't exist. It's always going to be interesting. It's always going to be, you're going to learn about new equipment, new procedures, new cabling techniques, new mounts, new everything, but also a lot of the basic concepts do remain, because a wall is a wall, right? It goes up and down, left and right. A ceiling is horizontal, a floor is horizontal. It's just sometimes how things are being arranged. It's good to know the basic stuff. And the purpose of that is efficiency, right? So you can do things efficiently and properly and safely, right? Safety first, yeah. Okay. Now, here's a typical timber construction type that you could find in mostly residential setting. Now, when it comes to commercial, depends where you are. When I was here in Ontario, well, looking things in Ontario, mostly you're going to, or southwestern Ontario, that was where we are, mostly you're going to see steel structures in a commercial setting. So stores, restaurants, any kind of commercial building, you're going to see not a timber or wood structure, you're going to see more steel studs, steel framing, and steel, a lot of other things. Infrastructure, structural infrastructure. If you go to sort of more towards western provinces, where I was doing sometimes I would be sent to do a job in Saskatchewan, Alberta, Manitoba, all the western provinces. I haven't been sent east, which, I don't know why. Then you're going to see timber in the residential setting, and also a lot of timber or wood structures in the commercial setting as well. That's just somehow it's not all the time, but for the most part, you're going to see timber in commercial structures as well. But let's say we have two different structures, timber and steel. Here, residential, mostly going to be timber, commercial, mostly is going to be steel. There are advantages and disadvantages to all of them, right? Now, when it comes to timber structure, here's a typical wall that has most of the elements that you can encounter. You're going to have the top plate, and you're going to have the bottom plate or sole plate. And the sole plate, the top plate, you're going to have some headers. You're going to have some studs. Like this is a door, so the door is going to have a header. You're going to have the king studs, or you just call them studs. And there's going to be some trimming going, so maybe some other 2x4s. And by the way, 2x4 is not a 2x4. It's called 2x4 because it has supposed to have 2 inches across and 4 inches deep. But I'll let you find out the exact dimensions of, it's close to 2x4. Right? That's why they call 2x4s, because it's easier to call it. Right? So this will be a typical door setting. Right? Now here's some more studs. And here are those interior wall nailers, so, to put the more drywall. Now, you can find that mostly those, and sometimes they will be called nodgings, a little bit different. They will be 2x4s flipped the other way. But you're going to have some form of horizontal structure, which is good for the structural concept, the physical structure. Sometimes it gives us a little bit of a hard time. We, as cable people, we might not like this thing as much because it gives us a hard time if those horizontal, whatever it is, either is it going to be nodgings or those what they call interior wall nailers, right? Sometimes they're called horizontal studs or horizontals. Right? They would prevent us sometimes, or make our lives hard when it comes to running cables, either from the top or from the bottom. Either electrical wiring or infrastructure wiring as far as data, telephone, intercom, security, climate control, whatever else. Yeah, those are going to give us a hard time. And this, what I'm talking about, is after the drywall is installed. The best time, either commercial or residential, and I want you to pay attention to what I say right now, and that's going to save you a lot of aggravation, and it possibly might save you a lot of time and money. As the data, I'm just going to call it data infrastructure people. We people that have to do with the infrastructure wiring, we need to be before the drywall, if it's a new construction, right? And if it's a new, properly scheduled construction site, we need to be just before the drywall is installed, but we also want to be just after the air duct people are done. We don't want to be before the air ducts are laid. We don't want to be there during the air ducts being laid and installed, because we're just asking for trouble. If you are there before, and if you install your wiring, lay it nicely, install it nicely, all beautiful, no tangles, no any spider web situations, all nice and structured. The air duct people are going to come after you, and they are just going to destroy your work. They will drive nails through it. They will drive screws through your wiring. They will yank on your wiring to move it aside. Sometimes they will cut and remove your wiring. Not a good idea to run your wiring before those guys, and there is no remedy. There is no pill for that. Right? So you want to be after that, after the air ducts are being installed. And by saying that, I mean it even if there are detailed drawings that this air duct is supposed to go this way and turn over there, and here's a 2 feet space, even if you have detailed drawings, still there will be notices of change, because something is going to be in the way. Somebody didn't think of something else, that some other situation. Yes, those air ducts are going to be according to those drawings for the most part, but there's going to be a lot of changes, and guess what? Your wiring is going to get destroyed. You don't want that, right? So again, I'm going to repeat that. Our window of opportunity is after the air ducts are installed and before the drywall is installed. Well, obviously, because after the drywall is installed, this whole thing is going to be covered, and it's going to be much harder for us to run wires. Like, for example, if you want to run a security contact, which looks like this, and this is called a flash mount security contact. Security contact, or typically known as door contact, DC, nothing to do with the DC type of power. Right? DC stands for, it stands for, did I write it here? Well, you'll be able to look at this thing, some of that. And of course, if you want to get into it, as I always say, talk to me. I will help you with setting your business, or even if you are doing a project for yourself or somebody else, talk to me. All right. So if you want to install one of those flash as opposed to surface mount contacts, flash contact we are able to install inside the door frame. So here is the wired part. You drill a hole in the frame, and that thing is in the door frame, and the wire comes up to the top, and it's connected to the wire that runs to the security alarm panel. Of course, it is so much easier before the drywall is installed because you have access to this space, you have access to this space here, you have access to this space in the terms of being able to drill a hole that goes between this trimming or this, well, these are called the crib holes, right? Or generally speaking, between this piece of 2x4, right? And this piece of 2x4, so you can run your wire and you can route it further. Or if you want to drill a hole between these two, now this here, this header, that's something else. Sometimes it's just a solid piece of wood or combination thereof. There is no space between anywhere. And sometimes you just really have to get a long drill bit, thick enough to be able to thread a wire. That's why the security alarm wires are a little bit narrower or not as thick. So you can run that. Can you imagine trying to drill that and not make a mess after the drywall is installed? I've had situations that people ask me, can you install alarm system? Yeah. So I walk in there and my basic question is, when is the next time you're planning on painting your house? Why? Because, well, sometimes I will have to disturb a little bit of drywall here, knock a wall so I can put my drill bit here and drill things. So things might have to be patched up after I'm done. Oh, we just painted the house. Okay, now you call me. I have such situations. Then what do? Well, you install something that's called wireless door contacts. So there's no wiring involved, just batteries, and there's a radio transmitter and receiver or radio transmitter in the contact that transmits the signals to the panel, which has a wireless receiver. They are more expensive. If you buy these contacts in the bag, one of those contacts might cost you, $1.50, maybe $2 per contact, maybe $3 now. Now, the wireless door contact might cost you $75, $85, $90, depending where you buy it and what type of contact that is. And, how many doors do you have? How many windows do you have? It adds up. But just so you know, people have to be explained that just because this little part costs, let's say, $3, you still have to run a wire to it. And the cost of running the wire is time. So this doesn't cost you just $3. It costs you this $3 plus the cost of the wire, which is, sometimes is more significant than others. And the most significant cost of that is your time to drill the hole, route it, mount it properly, run it to the, and so some of the prices are going to be more or less the same, whether you're installing this type of contact, wired contact, and spend the time of running the wire, or you're going to have to pay more for the wireless contact and not spend the time on running the wire. It balances out to pretty much almost the same. Okay, so here's the things when you're selling your services. As much as possible, try to explain to the client so the client doesn't feel that they're being taken advantage of. Right? There's nothing worse than making client think that they're being taken advantage of. That's how you lose the business. I guess, but let me not digress too much about. But then it is important. Okay, so out of this slide, just zoom out. Can I zoom out? I'm getting here. All right, so not going to ask you to remember by memory. I might ask you on a test, what do you call this? What do you call that? What's important when it comes to... Look how thick in timber this is here. it is a significant, you have to spend a significant amount of energy to install things when the drywall is not there. Right? So I might ask you this, that. I'm not going to ask you to remember by memory. Although, if you work in the business long enough, you're going to remember those that terminology. Anyways, regardless, but we don't need, as the cable installer, we don't need to know the exact proper technical term that this is a king stud and this is a trimming. We just need to know that this is what we have to go through in order to run a wire. And that's what's happening here. Now, when it comes to commercial setting, and steel timber, steel construction, steel framing, as opposed to timber framing, things are not packed as much. So in the timber setting, you're going to see a lot of horizontals. And the steel, you're going to see a lot of empty spaces. So you could actually drop your wire all the way from the top, drop it here, and just pick and choose the location for a switch or for a jack or connector or whatever you have to do, and just make an opening in the drywall if the drywall is installed. And you have that hollow space. You just have to drop the wire then and just typical coat hanger type of a hook. And if you have hands small enough, you can just stick a hand in there, right, and grab the wire. When it comes to timber, you're going to see a lot of horizontals, so you have to, well, you have to be smart about it. If it's a nicely decorated office and somebody wants to have a jack right there because here's a countertop or whatever, right? You just have to explain to the client, look, it's going to be difficult to do this because of the horizontals there. And if they still want, and sometimes they say, look, if you make a mess, don't worry, I got my people, they will patch it up. But you have to be clear in all the communication. Right? So every situation is different. And sometimes it's difficult to get it because there's other furniture over there. Right? So just just so you know, so if you drill a hole here to make it to put a jack like a foot above the floor, and then you're gonna go, oh no, I can only poke my stick, the wire pulling stick right up to here. Something is stopping it, or something is stopping it here. Because it's a horizontal. So what do you do now? Right? Patch the hole, put a blank faceplate, just so you know what you're getting into. Try to be predictable when it comes to do things. Now here's another typical structure behind the drywall. Right. You got the header, you had the head plate, you had the sole plate, and you have the studs, and you have the horizontals, and these are called notchings, just so there's a proper spacing because it's timber. Steel, again, if it's a steel framing, most of the time, you're not going to encounter those horizontals. All right, what else do we have to deal with? Another thing is insulation. Right, here's what notchings are, so you can read that. You know how to read, right? Right. Another thing is insulation. If it were, okay, you have that, you have a wall, or let's say exterior wall or interior wall. Do we install insulation on exterior walls? Yes, to prevent or to conserve energy, to prevent heat from escaping in the winter, and to prevent heat of getting through towards inside in the summer here in southern Ontario. If there are places that the seasons are different, things could be different. But I'm talking about what we have here. So do we need insulation in the interior, on the interior walls, because, well, it's an inside wall. It does, both sides of the wall, of the interior wall, are inside. Do we need insulation? Yes, we do, and it's a really good idea that insulation is there for the sound separation. So if somebody is talking on the phone in their bedroom, the whole house doesn't have to hear what they're talking about, because maybe somebody else wants to watch a TV in the living room. Or if somebody wants to be in the bedroom and do your homework or work on your computer, you don't want to hear the TV from the living room as much. So the insulation on the interior wall you're going to encounter as well, but it's almost 50-50 chance that sometimes, quite often, people try to save money and they're not going to install soundproofing insulation on the interior walls, but you are going to see for sure insulation on the outside walls or exterior walls, which would be one side of the wall would be inside of the house and the other side would be the outside of the house or the building. Now, when it comes to running a wire, if you just want to have the jack right here and you're bringing the wire from the attic, you can just drill a hole here and drop the wire and pick it up to here. If you want to do it this way here, yes, you can do that, but there's a specific type of a drill that you're going to have to use in order to puncture yourself through those horizontals. But also you got to be really careful, because if you don't position the drill, it's called flexible drill. If you don't position the drill properly, then you're going to go through the wall on one side or the other. Has happened. It's happening all the time. So, but when you have insulation, you can't just drop a wire, because the insulation is going to prevent that. You're going to get some assistance of something that is stiff and snug, which would be the fiberglass rods, right? Or sometimes the fish tape, you can push it through, and but it's so much more difficult. And of course, I'm talking about installing the wire after the drywall is installed. If the drywall is not installed, you have all that open space here, then you're laughing. Well, not laughing, but you're going to be a really happy person, because installing wirings like that is just a pleasant thing to do, an enjoyable thing to do. All right, so we got the two slides here. We're going to continue with that. I'm not going to post this yet as the lecture notes, because I want to go through a lot more of them, and then I'll just post it. I just want to go through the rest of them, and I'm just going to post that. All right. As we finish, this is today, July 10th, 2024, week number 9 of the summer term. This Friday's lecture, there's going to be no new content, but I will be in class in case somebody wants to come over and talk about anything, anything that has to do with this course. And as I said, not going to talk about, and I can't answer any questions that have to do with the questions that are going to be on this test. And the test I will probably release later on tonight, if not tomorrow by noon. But you're going to have enough time. If I release it today, you're going to have so many days to do it. If I release it tomorrow, you're going to have so many days plus one more day, right? Because yeah. So the test is going to be released probably tonight. Okay. This is 10:53 right now, so I gotta give you time to get to your next class, and I gotta get ready for my next class. It's been a pleasure today, and as always, plus the Friday as well. Oh, the lab. We're going to see the lab. Yeah, No, Friday labs. Yes, we do have labs. Yeah. It's just a lecture. I think it's on Thursday that is going to be no new content, but I will be there to answer questions, should you have any. All right. Okay, cool. So before I start going in circles, repeating myself, it's been a pleasure, and I'll see you when I see you. Thank you, guys and gals.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.